This was a story about people with powers called espers. One of them was Hyobu Kiyosuke, who had various powers and was the leader of an esper organization called Pandra. The story began when Kiyosuke was being captured and taken to a deadlocked prison or a special prison for espers. When he insulted the warden, its assistant got angry and punched him while saying that he could not use his power there. When Kiyosuke said that he would try it, guns were immediately aimed at him. An inmate named Hinomiya intervened and tried to calm the situation. Kiyosuke approached him and they talked for a while. Then he used his power on the helicopter, so the authorities immediately activated the anti-especially to maximum output, causing his power to stop working and the helicopter to crash. He was brought to his prison and Hinomiya was also taken with him. While in jail, they discussed the organization of Kiyosuke. Hinomiya mentioned that if they get out from prison, he wanted to join the organization. So Kiyosuke said that he would remember what he said and that Hinomiya should remember it too. Kiyosuke also mentioned that he would leave the place after finishing his mission there. Meanwhile, the warden and his assistant planned to poison Kiyosuke. While at the diner, Kiyosuke noticed that the cook put poison on his soup. He still accepted it and gave the soup to Hinomiya. In Hinomiya's delight, he accepted the food and ate it without hesitations. Later that day, the prisoners had a duel and Hinomiya was the one to fight its opponent. Since the poison was already taking effect in his stomach, Hinomiya could not fight and was beat up, causing him to lose. Kiyosuke approached him and told him that it was the beginning of his plan to get Hinomiya out of prison and that he must fulfill his promise to join the Pandra. When Hinomiya woke up, he saw Kiyosuke with the doctors and guards lying on the ground. They went out of this room and Kiyosuke began to look for his target in the area. Then they noticed the guard approaching, so they hid immediately, and when the guard got closer, Hinomiya quickly attacked him. Kiyosuke was surprised on what he did, so Hinomiya told him that he was a former member of the military in the States after he finished high school. They continued walking and they ended up in a huge room. In Kyusuke's anger after seeing the content of this room, he grabbed the gun which Hinomiya was carrying and started shooting the surroundings. Hinomiya noticed a burning photo and saw the young Kiyosuke in it. In a bed which was surrounded by glass, a girl named Yugiri peeked out from the curtains and got out of the bed. As Kiyosuke approached Yugiri, the guards came. The warden was also there and let out the monster with him. Without a warning, Kiyosuke attacked it, but this was only blocked by the monster. After that, the monster rushed at him and they fought. Hinomiya picked up the gun and went upstairs. Even though Kiyosuke was very fast, the monster was still able to keep up with his speed. Until he was hit by the monster's attack and fell inside Yugiri's room. When the monster was about to attack again, Hinomiya shot it. The monster got pissed and attacked him, but Hinomiya was able to block it with his power. When Kiyosuke saw the small hose on Yugiri's arm, he got angry and immediately removed it. After shattering the surrounding mirrors, he decided to release his true power. With the strength of his power, it caused the destruction of the floor as he walked. The monster attacked him, but those could not even land on Kiyosuke. He made counter-attacks until the monster was beaten and was killed by him. From the monster's scattered part of its body, Momotaro emerged. After that fight, Kiyosuke blew up the entire building and they left the area immediately. Then he reversed the limiter he was wearing that caused his intense power to disappear. As they got near the port, Hinomiya was surprised when the Pandra ship called Catastrophe appeared from its disguise. Mage came down from here and told the prisoners that they were all free. Because of Hinomiya's promise to Kyusuke, he accepted his fate and joined the Pandra. As they boarded the ship, Mage asked Kiyosuke if they would not have a problem with Hinomiya. While Hinomiya was at the bottom of the ship, he used his eye to talk to his master. He turned out to be a USEI investigator and he announced that he had successfully infiltrated the Pandra organization. Later than the top of the building where Carlo was, this person was not able to use his power. Carlo used his power to attack them, but Kiyosuke was able to stop it. Once again, Kiyosuke released his intense power. He attacked Carlo, who was immediately crushed, and the other buildings were also destroyed by this attack. The day had come to hold the country's Blue Star Day, and it would be led by Princess Sophie, who was well known among espers. It was attended by organizations related to espers, including the two members of Babel, named Minamoto and Sakari, who represented Japan. When they got inside the venue, they saw Kiyosuke's group and approached them. Minamoto asked them what they were doing there. So Kiyosuke replied that he just wanted to see the faces of those who would one day might be considered as their enemies. When Kiyosuke's group was about to leave, Sakari stopped them and grabbed Kiyosuke's clothes. But because its companions were around them and a lot of people were staring, Sakari let go of Kiyosuke immediately. The light suddenly went out, and when it turned back, they saw the writings on the wall. Meanwhile, Minamoto and Sakari went to the country's defense minister and they discussed about the Pandra. Suddenly, a royal guard entered and showed the news that Princess Sophie had been kidnapped by Pandra. Then Sakari showed the USB drive that he got from Kiyosuke's pocket during their confrontation. Little did they know that Kiyosuke was watching them from the other building. When the princess woke up, the members of Pandra introduced themselves. Then Sophie realized her current situation. Sophie asked Kiyosuke why they were doing this. He did not directly answer this, but he told her that it was Yugiri who suggested that they should do it. Since Sophie could see that the actual members of Pandra were different from what she hears, she offered them to work with her. But Kiyosuke did not pay attention to this at first and told everyone on what they were supposed to do next. Sakari found out that there was a plan to assassinate the princess when he saw the residual files on the USB drive. They suspected that maybe Pandra saw the plan to kill the princess, so they abducted her. Yugiri brought tea to Sophie, but before she could leave, Sophie stopped her because she wanted to talk to her for the meantime. While Kiyosuke and Hinomiya were talking about Sophie and Yugiri, Yo suddenly called to inform them of the status of their mission. Yo told him that they had not noticed anything yet, and it seemed like it was not a good idea to use Pandra to find those who wanted to assassinate Sophie. Sophie and Yugiri entered the room to ask Kiyosuke if they could go out for a walk. Because Kiyosuke had a plan in mind, he allowed them. Minamoto was surprised to see so many Sophies outside, and he immediately thought of Kiyosuke, who was the only person he knew who could do this. After that, Yo heard some people panicking and immediately called Momiji to point out the location of these people. Momiji and Magi immediately went to them, but one was able to run away after seeing what they did. Another group of enemy went to a house and Kiyosuke was waiting for them. Meanwhile, Hinomiya was assigned to watch over Sophie and Yugiri. Kiyosuke found out that these assassins were just ordered to kill Sophie by an anti-Esper organization for a reason that she was close to the Espers. Since their transaction was conducted online, these assassins did not know who was the mastermind. But Kiyosuke assured that they would soon find out because someone was already doing it for them. And it turned out to be Minamoto and Sakari, who were currently playing the game of the USB drive. Since they finished the game, they saw the contents of the USB drive. Once they got access to the data, they saw important information about the country's budget, meetings, proposed bills and others, which was the reasons for the defense minister to order them to close it immediately. Minamoto suddenly thought of something and asked the minister for a favor. Sophie took Yugiri and Hinomiya to the former orphanage that she was supporting. Then she told Yugiri that she seemed familiar to her because they met before at this orphanage. While the two of them were hugging, an officer of Sophie came and told her to stay away from Hinomiya and the kid. When Minamoto came, he shouted and said that he was the person who wanted to kill her. This guy suddenly pulled out a gun and pulled its trigger to shoot Sophie, but Hinomiya saved her, causing him to be hit by the shot. When the guy got close to Sophie, Yugiri suddenly released a strong power to protect her. Then Kiyosuke came there and tried to calm her down. He also used his power to crush the enemy's gun and fingers. This gave the minister a chance to arrest the assassin. When Sophie saw Kiyosuke and Yugiri, she told him that he deserved to be the guardian of the child. Kiyosuke promised that he would risk his life to protect Yugiri. When Minamoto approached them, Kiyosuke decided to leave immediately and told them that they had no reason to stay in the country. Then he decided that their group would return to Japan. Hinomiya spoke to his master again and informed him that he had not yet entered the center of the ship. But he already thought of a plan for this. While Kiyosuke's group was about to enter Japan, the Babel, led by director Sabomi, was already waiting for them. Hinomiya started to move and opened the rooms of the ship, but he was annoyed that the rooms he entered were just the same. He was startled when Yo and Yugiri saw him in a room and told him that he was not allowed in that area. On the other hand, Minamoto, who was on the helicopter, ordered his 3 girl companions to attack, causing the other part of the ship to be damaged. These girls also attacked the other people on the ship. Sakari was also waiting near the bridge to stop and arrest the group of Kiyosuke. When they heard the announcement, they took their action. Because these 3 girls who attacked the catastrophe were strong, the other espers who were on board with Kiyosuke were not able to stop them. Momiji was alerted when the Babel managed to penetrate the catastrophe system. The members of Pandra were told to surrender, because if not, the Babel would use force to seize them. Kiyosuke saw the enemy's queen, named Karo, and he went to confront her. They both fought and showed their power, which almost equal in strength. Meanwhile, Yo and Hinomiya faced another girl named Nagami. Yo was unable to hit Nagami and she used her power to teleport him to the Babel ship. Hinomiya threw Momotaro at her and flipped the limiter so Nagami's attack would not work on him. When he captured her, another girl, named Shiho, also came and caught Hinomiya. When Hinomiya heard the name of these 2 agents, he also noticed the Babel logo on their uniform. Then he immediately recognized them as Japan's special esper force called the Children. The 2 looked for the access pass of the main section of the catastrophe and found it on Momotaro. Then they went to where the Mage was located and made Hinomiya a shield so that Mage and Momiji could not fight them well. The catastrophe was successfully brought under the control of Babel. Nagami and Shiho also left quickly, and when Kiyosuke noticed this, Kaoru also stopped the fight and left. As Hinomiya was taking the opportunity to investigate, Kiyosuke saw him. Momiji admitted that they could not fix the catastrophe, so Kiyosuke decided to enter the Babel ship. As Kiyosuke was about to leave, Hinomiya was able to hold on to him, causing them both to be teleported together to Babel. The submarine attacked the Babel ship and they soon found out that Kiyosuke and Hinomiya were able to enter the ship. Then they immediately found the location of Yo and their other companions. Suddenly a grenade appeared in front of Hinomiya and Kiyosuke immediately took it and threw it away. The 3 girls showed up again and Kiyosuke told Hinomiya to find the remote that controls the catastrophe, for he would take care of the 3 girls first. Tsubomi had the remote that controls the catastrophe and knew that this was what he wanted. When the submarine attacked Babel's ship again, Hinomiya grabbed the opportunity to use another of his powers. Besides being immune to ESP, he also had the power to disable the power of the Esper that he directly touched for some time. Because of this, he was able to defeat Tsubomi and destroyed the remote control, causing the catastrophe to go back to normal. Momiji quickly changed the direction of the catastrophe while Hinomiya was caught by Minamoto. The 2 of them fought when suddenly something exploded and Hinomiya quickly jumped from the ship to escape and Kiyosuke saved him. The 3 girls attack again and Kiyosuke said that he would face the queen. It was this moment that Mage and Momiji told Hinomiya the full name of catastrophe, which was the Queen of Catastrophe. They also mentioned that Pandra was not an organization of criminals. They were only fighting to free the espers who were oppressed by normal people, and they also intend to change the world. And their future matriarch was Akashi Kaoru, but according to Kiyosuke they could not pass it on to Kaoru for now. Kiyosuke used his true power to parry the attack of the 3 girls, causing them to lose in the fight. Then they got the opportunity to afloat the catastrophe and successfully escaped from Babel. They changed the appearance of the catastrophe again so it would not be recognized by the enemies. They successfully docked in Tokyo and were being expected by Muscle, who was also a member of Pandra and was waiting for them there. He was assigned by Kiyosuke to repair the damages caused in the catastrophe. Kiyosuke left and told them that he was going to take care of something. While Hinomiya and the other members went for a walk around the city and bought the things that they needed. Momiji was shopping for Yugiri's souvenir, but Yugiri did not like it because she wanted to choose the items personally, so she ran away. Mage ordered Hinomiya to chase after Yugiri because his power could be of help if something unexpected happened to them. Yugiri passed by the shop of Lucky Charms and liked one item on sale. Fortunately, Hinomiya came just in time, so Yugiri was able to buy it. Then they passed by the amusement park and Hinomiya noticed that Yugiri wanted to enter it, so he was forced to buy tickets for both of them. Since high-level espers were not allowed inside, Hinomiya used his limiter. While they were watching, Hinomiya told her to just stay, for he would buy them something to drink. Then he noticed that they were being followed and he caught the person on act. It turned out to be Minamoto. He informed him that he already knew that Hinomiya was an investigator from the US. Tsubomi also appeared and said that he need not to worry about Yugiri because Sakari was watching over her. They asked Hinomiya to work with them to catch the members of the Pandra. Then Tsubomi told him the story of Kiyosuke's past when he was still a soldier and was betrayed by its superior officer, which was the reason why Kiyosuke killed him and their other companions. Tsubomi added that Kiyosuke also killed the first members of Babel that was established for the protection of espers because he did not trust any esper protection in relation to something normal. At this moment, Hinomiya found out that Tsubomi was also like Kyusuke, who had lived for a long time and still maintained her young appearance. Then Minamoto told him that what they would do was also for Kiyosuke's sake. Kyosuke examined his body by himself and he did not like what he saw. Suddenly, a woman entered, so he immediately left the room. After Yugiri watched the show, she saw a child crying and was looking for his parents. Using her power, she easily found the child's parents, so they went to them. The boy told his parents what Yugiri had done to find them, so they concluded that she was an esper. Because other people heard this, they were curious and many people had their eyes on her. Sakari was about to approach Yugiri when the guard stopped him. When a guard touched Yugiri to bring her with him, she suddenly released her power. So Sakari immediately called Minamoto to inform him of the situation. When they reached Yugiri's location, he deactivated his limiter and grabbed Yugiri to disable her power. When thing returned to normal, Mage came there because he felt Yugiri's power too. Then he asked Hinomiya to reactivate his limiter and they left the area immediately. After a while, Momiji told Hinomiya about the day that Kyosuke saved them. She said that almost all of them who were there had gone through the same thing. So Kyosuke planned to change the world where espers did not need to be afraid anymore. They celebrated Kyosuke's birthday, and because Hinomiya did not know about it, he was not able to prepare any presents. So Momiji told him to make his preparations next year. While they were happy about it, Kyosuke wondered if he would make it to his next birthday because he knew he only had a little time left. Hinomiya also wondered if they would still be together next year. He was still confused about the real Kyosuke, whether he was a killer or a savior of espers. Then they had their meeting on their next mission, and it was to steal the new ECM. They knew that they could use the analysis from it to get information on what normal people planned to do to the espers. Kyosuke announced that once this mission was over, they would leave Japan again. Hinomiya thought about it and Kyosuke noticed him since they rarely see him having a deep thought. Then Hinomiya asked Momiji why Babel was angry with Pandra. Just like Tsubomi said, this was also what they know as the reason. But they could not tell the details of what really happened, so she suggested that Hinomiya should ask Kyosuke by him. When Hinomiya arrived in Ihachigo's room, he called his boss to send a retrieval unit. He also pleaded not to send the army of the military because only children and civilian espers were inside the catastrophe. Hinomiya was surprised to hear Kyosuke's voice in the room. He said that he already knew Hinomiya's identity because of his suspicious actions. Kyosuke also remembered someone by Hinomiya's eyes. During the past, when Kyosuke was still young, he ended up in the care of the Tsubomi's family after his father died. Like him, Tsubomi also had psychokinetic powers. As Kyosuke writes a letter for his father, he remembered the times when his father scolded him every time he used his powers. Tsubomi suddenly came in the room and snatched Kyosuke's letter. Then he used his power to take back the letter. Tsubomi was surprised because she was not able to stop Kyosuke's power. A captain of the Imperial Army, named Eiji, also arrived with Utsumi. He also knew Kyosuke's father because he was with him while in college. Eiji founded the ESP unit and he offered Kyosuke and Tsubomi to join it as well. Tsubomi disagrees with this because she knew that espers would only become tools and be used in war. Tsubomi took Kyosuke with her and left the room. Then Utsumi noticed the letter on the floor, so he picked it up and read it until he learned what was on Kyosuke's mind. So Utsumi said that Kyosuke respected his father's wishes that he must not use his power in war. But Eiji was still confident that Kyosuke and Tsubomi would join the ESP unit. At night, both Tsubomi and Kyosuke were thinking about their power and the effect that these would cause on their lives. Because of this, they both decided to join the ESP unit. When Eiji and Utsumi arrived, Kyosuke and Tsubomi were already with the other members of the ESP unit. A year later, after Kyosuke got what he had been asked to fix, he bumped into a policeman on the road. While the police was scolding him, Tsubomi came. The policeman and Tsubomi had an argument until Tsubomi kicked the policeman and was thrown into another uniformed officer. Utsumi immediately found out that it was a naval officer, causing them to worry. The ESP members were asked to hang out in the villa while Eiji talked to the high officials. Meanwhile, using the power of one of their members, he was able to know what they were talking about through a bird. The senior officials wanted the ESP unit to be disbanded. But Eiji suggested that they should hold a duel between the normal soldier and the Esper. He said that if they lose, he would disband the ESP unit. Then Eiji informed everyone about it and he added that it was a one-on-one aerial fight. Tsubomi volunteered to make up for the trouble she caused earlier, but Eiji chose Kyosuke. Then Kyosuke was immediately trained for the upcoming match. When the day of the duel arrived, Tsubomi approached Kyosuke's opponent. She was shocked when she found out that it was the soldier who got involved in the fight. He suddenly left to go to Kyosuke so the duel could start immediately. While the opponent was chasing Kyosuke, he changed his direction so that he could not be easily targeted by the soldier. Kyosuke learned this because this was being taught while they were on training. But Kyosuke still could not fight properly because he felt like his body was too heavy, as if someone was pulling him down. Eiji noticed this and he knew that this would happen at first. But he was still confident that it was not a mistake when he chose Kyosuke to fight. On the other hand, Kyosuke felt that his father was telling him not to use his power because it was the reason why his mother died. But when Kyosuke remembered his conversation with Eiji and its advice to him, he had the courage to fight according to how he wanted it. Because of this, he successfully hit the windshield of his opponent's plane and was declared the winner of the duel. Then Eiji received news that a foreign submarine had been spotted in the area. Eiji immediately ordered Kyosuke to change his ammunition and go to the location of the submarine. Other members of the ESP also took action and told the soldiers that the ESP unit would take care of this submarine. When they got near it, they tried to get the submarine's identity, but the soldier just fired at them. When the submarine sank again, Eiji told the ESP unit to leave it alone. A few minutes later, they saw 3 dolphins which has the power of telepathy. Those were suddenly attacked, causing one of the dolphins to die. Then the other 2 dolphins were being attacked too, so the ESP tried to stop it, but one missile got through. Kyosuke immediately chased after it and suddenly the person he fought came to help him. Using his power, he was able to successfully stop it. When Kyosuke returned to the ship, the Esper spoke to the 2 dolphins. Then the dolphin said that Espers were even more prone to death than them. A few years later, Kyosuke talked to Eiji about the enemy's attack on them. Then Eiji answered that the war was over and there was nothing they could do but to surrender. But Kyosuke told him that he wanted to fight for they might be able to stop the next attack of the enemies. Then Eiji showed an object that contained the brain of a dolphin that died. According to the analyses, it had the ability to see the future. And it was seen here that there would be more Espers in the future and that Kyosuke would lead them to destroy the world. Suddenly, Eiji pointed his gun at him and wanted him to die so that no one would know that there was a monster like him. He also did not want anyone else to use Kyosuke's power, and then he shot him multiple times. The last shot was on Kyosuke's head and Eiji said that he could now be with other Esper who had died. But he was surprised when Kyosuke suddenly got up. Then he was immediately killed by Kyosuke. That was the reason why Kyosuke began his revenge on the normal people who betrayed him and promised himself that he would eliminate them all. Meanwhile, the USEI started to take action, but they had not been able to contain the catastrophe. Kyosuke started to attack Hinomiya, and although he knew that Hinomiya was immune to any power, Hinomiya still could not stop the things he was able to control. So Hinomiya decided to pull out his gun. He threw it at Kyosuke, which was avoided by him, and Hinomiya immediately held Ihachigo so that its power would not work. Because of this, the USEI was able to detect the catastrophe. USEI immediately attacked it and informed their leader. Kyosuke heard their leader's voice, and because of what he was saying about Espers, Kyosuke got angry. They began to attack the catastrophe and Hinomiya realized that USEI did not follow his request. Kiyosuke teleported and immediately went out to face the enemies. Those attacking the catastrophe turned out to be unmanned crafts. When USEI saw the other children, Patty came and fought them. But there were soldiers who brought the ECM, so Patty could not use her powers anymore. While the others hid first while they were being searched by the group of Minamoto. Suddenly Muscle came and they also decided to show themselves and fight the group of Minamoto. Then they received news of the current situation of catastrophe. Minamoto also showed it to Mage's group, so they quickly returned to the catastrophe. USEI successfully got the Hachigo while Hinomiya's boss was not answering his call. When Magi's group arrived at the catastrophe, they immediately attacked the enemies who were in the room where they entered. While Yugiri was also found and captured by the enemies. They went to the room where they knew the other espers were hiding and saw Patty and other children there. When Hinomiya faced his boss, he immediately noticed Yugiri behind him. Hinomiya wanted him to release Yugiri because espers were still people. But his boss did not listen to him and decided to kill him. When Kiyosuke finished in destroying all the unmanned crafts in front of him, he noticed the explosions in the catastrophe and saw the two children who were being targeted by the enemies. When he was about to approach to save them, his chest suddenly hurt. Fortunately, Mage and Yo arrived to block the attack and use his power to blow up the enemy's helicopter. Kiyosuke went down and Mage noticed that Kiyosuke's face was in distress with what was happening to them. So Mage approached him to wake him up. Kiyosuke immediately returned to his old self, but the enemies continued to attack them and the ship. So Kiyosuke decided to use his true power. He once again fought the unmanned crafts that were sent and blew up other ships that were attacking the catastrophe. They managed to get the children out of the catastrophe. Then Momiji remembered Yugiri. As they were about to return for Yugiri, something suddenly exploded, causing them to enter the portal, and it slowly closed. On the other hand, Hinomiya got up and saw that his limiter blocked the bullet that hit him. He saw Kiyosuke from above who was trying to stop the missiles. But he reached his limitation, so Hinomiya immediately ran to help him. The missiles also went straight to the catastrophe, causing it to be destroyed completely. After the explosion, Kiyosuke fell into the sea. He heard his father's voice when he saw what he had given him. He was about to touch it, when Hinomiya suddenly grabbed his hand to save him. When they got above the water, Hinomiya was surprised when Tsubomi appeared in front of them. Tsubomi took Kiyosuke to their old villa and then Sakari took care of him. She noticed something strange on what the US was doing. She told Sakari that she wanted them to investigate it. This was also the reason why they secretly brought Kiyosuke to this place. When Kiyosuke woke up, they talked. She immediately asked if he knew why USEI acted like this so badly. Kiyosuke remembered the voice he heard and thought of the possible person behind it, but he did not tell it to Tsubomi. With the help of Kashiwagi and the three girls, they removed the chip that USEI put on Hinomiya's head to quickly track him and for his communication with USEI. Hinomiya asked about Kiyosuke's whereabouts, but Kashiwagi refused to answer. So Shiho used her weapon on her so they could find out where Kiyosuke was. Then they put Kashiwagi to sleep. Since they were going to look for Kiyosuke, Hinomiya also begged to take him with them. After Kaoru heard Hinomiya's reason, he agreed to take her along. Meanwhile, Mage managed to find a way to find out about Yugiri's situation. They also learned from Momotaro that Hinomiya was a USEI spy. Mage told them that they should save Yugiri, and she also knew that Kiyosuke was still alive. When Hinomiya arrived at Kiyosuke's place, the two of them talked in private. Kiyosuke asked everything that Hinomiya knew, especially about the voice he heard while they were in the catastrophe. Hinomiya said that he had talked to this person only once when he was offered to join USEI. Because of the details given by him, Kiyosuke got pissed. For he suspected that this person was Eiji, and Tsubomi was also surprised about this. Because of Kiyosuke's too much anger, he suddenly lost consciousness. When Minamoto arrived at the villa, Sakari told them about Kiyosuke's impending death. Sakari said that he thought of a way to save Kiyosuke, but he was not sure if it would work. Then Hinomiya also found out about Kiyosuke's condition from Tsubomi. Tsubomi believed that Kiyosuke came back to life after Eiji killed him because of his desire to take revenge on the normals who betrayed them. Tsubomi told the story of the day they were being shot one by the Imperial Army. But she survived, and after the war, she thought of establishing Babel, and to do this, she forgot the past and cooperated with those who were related to the ESP unit. Those people were the previous members of Babel who were attacked by Kiyosuke. When Kiyosuke woke up, he saw Kaoru next to him who undergo the blood transfer. Kaoru told him that they were going to save the Pandra. She wanted Kiyosuke not to do it alone because she believed that if they worked together they could create the future that they all wanted to see. At night, Kiyosuke got ready and immediately left the villa. Meanwhile, Hinomiya was walking through the forest for he could not sleep. He suddenly felt something. Then the others also found out that Kiyosuke had left, so they decided to help each other in finding him. In the forest, Hinomiya saw Kaoru trying to stop Kiyosuke from leaving. But according to Kiyosuke, he had to go and see Eiji immediately. No matter what Kaoru said, she still could not stop Kiyosuke from leaving, and this made her cry. Minamoto begged Hinomiya to chase Kiyosuke and accompany him to where he was going. It returned the limiter to him, and Kiyosuke decided to ride on the vehicle. At that moment, Eiji saw the future from Ihachigo that Kaoru would join Kiyosuke and in his plans. Yugiri was also with them in this facility, and they were starting to experiment on her. When Hinomiya's former boss returned to where he was staying, Kiyosuke was already there waiting for him. Hinomiya was behind him, then pointed a gun on his head. Then he said that it seemed he was seeing two ghosts. He suddenly snatched Hinomiya's gun and tried to kill himself, but Kiyosuke stopped him. So he had no other choice but to take them both to Yugiri and Eiji's location. Based on the information they gathered, they found out that a Japanese had cooperated with the US about the policies related to espers. They watched on the news about the victory of Norman Green as the new mayor, who was also a well-known supporter of espers. When they arrived at the facility, they found out that Yugiri was previously experimented in a laboratory. When Yugiri was unable to control her power, she hurt those who were around her. Meanwhile, Sophie went to the facility where Yugiri was being experimented. When they arrived at the room where they were told that they could find Yugiri, they found out that this guy just lied to them. Suddenly they heard Eiji's voice, and he showed them the captured image from Ihachigo about the future events. The picture showed the espers causing trouble in a city. They also saw Kaoru in the picture, and Eiji told them that they would also kill her to change the future. Then Kiyosuke destroyed the speakers one by one, and soon the robots entered the room. The guy grabbed Kiyosuke, and Hinomiya immediately destroyed the ECM so that it won't limit Kiyosuke's power, causing only Hinomiya's former boss to be hit by the robots. They managed to get out of the room, but the robots continued to chase them. When they arrived in a large room, there were even more robots and other enemies with them. So Kiyosuke gave Hinomiya a weapon to fight the robots. Because of Kiyosuke's condition, who suddenly became weak, they quickly entered the elevator to hide from the enemies. Kiyosuke removed the handle from the elevator and turned it into a sword. When they arrived at the next floor, there were many robots waiting for them. Hinomiya quickly attacked them as well as other enemies who came. Then Kiyosuke destroyed the two robots that passed through Hinomiya. They reached to another vast room, and Hinomiya immediately destroyed the ECMs in it. But the anti-teleportation chaff was suddenly activated to prevent them from escaping. They fought the robots again, but there were still a lot coming, and other enemies came there too. When they were being surrounded, Kiyosuke was about to use his strong power, but Hinomiya stopped him. Fortunately, Momotaro suddenly came with Mage, and they helped to attack the enemies. When Momiji and Yo arrived, they finished eliminating their opponents. Using the submarine's weapon, they blew up the entire facility. Then they watched Norman Green's speech about espers. He said that he fully supported the espers, so Kiyosuke decided they would head to New York. When Yugiri was at the top of a building, Tsubomi found her. Yugiri immediately used her power to create a clone of Tsubomi, and it attacked the real Tsubomi. Mage also fought another clone of Yugiri, and so did Momiji. Momotaro felt what happened to Momiji, and Kiyosuke was about to go to her when he suddenly heard Yo's voice saying that he was going to take care of it. Yo immediately saw Yugiri walking towards the pedestrian, so he confronted her. While Hinomiya was walking, he felt that he met Yugiri, and he returned to find her. Before the start of the inauguration of Norman Green, Eiji talked to the high official to keep an eye on Kiyosuke's arrival. Eiji saw in Ihachigo that Norman Green would be the reason for espers and normal people to get along with each other. They assigned an esper to assassinate Norman Green so that the future could be changed for the people and espers to get into trouble again. This was also the reason to remove the Queen of Catastrophe in the future, who was Karo. Minamoto and Sakari saw Yugiri, and after a while Hinomiya also came and saw the lucky charm that Yugiri dropped on the road. He was about to enter when the guards stopped him because they immediately recognized him as a Pandra member. So Minamoto attacked the guards and Hinomiya quickly entered the area to stop Yugiri. When Norman showed up for his speech, Yugiri immediately released her power. She attacked Norman, but Hinomiya saved him by blocking the attack. Then the high-ranking official who was Eiji's accomplice took his action, saying that Norman must be killed, but Minamoto came to stop them. Yugiri surrounded the area with her power and was able to control the minds of the people who repeatedly shouted to kill the espers. Minamoto and Sakari were not affected by Yugiri's power because of Hinomiya and that they were by his side. Kiyosuke came and approached Yugiri. She immediately attacked him, but Kiyosuke was able to block her attack. Then Kiyosuke saw his clone at the top of the building. Yugiri further expanded the scope of her power so that more people could be affected by it. Then Kiyosuke started to fight his clone. After it disappeared, his former colleagues in the ESP unit appeared to him. They attacked him because they also wanted Kiyosuke to die. He also heard his father's voice saying that he should have joined his colleagues in the afterlife. Kiyosuke tried to calm himself because he knew that it was just an illusion. Eiji suddenly appeared and shot him in the forehead. When he got up, he saw himself as a young boy who told him that he was a monster. So Kiyosuke decided to use his strong power to make the illusion disappear until Yugiri and him were the only ones left. They managed to get into the city hall and Hinomiya quickly left to see Kiyosuke and Yugiri. Meanwhile, Yugiri's memories were shown one by one when she was experimented. Her memories moved from place to another until she met Kiyosuke. Because of what Kiyosuke did, he successfully made Yugiri return to normal, causing her power that surrounded the area to disappear. Then Kiyosuke immediately removed the barcode from Yugiri's neck. After a while, Kiyosuke lost control on his power. This was because of his prolonged use of extreme power during his fights. He ordered Hinomiya to take Yugiri with him and left the place immediately. But Hinomiya did not follow it and decided to approach Kiyosuke to save him, and Yugiri also helped to do this. When Hinomiya got hold of Kiyosuke, he immediately used his power. After a few moments, he successfully controlled the situation and Kiyosuke's power. Kiyosuke was surprised by what Hinomiya did. A few days later, while Eiji was sitting in a square, Kiyosuke approached him. Eiji wanted Kiyosuke to kill him, but Kiyosuke refused to do it because his queen would not like it. Instead, Kiyosuke removed all of Eiji's memories and left him in the area. While Hinomiya decided to leave and he informed the others about it. When he left the building, he met Kiyosuke outside. He told Kiyosuke that he felt incomplete because he did not seem to belong to espers and even to humans. So he wanted to find something that would complete himself. He returned the limiter to him, but Kiyosuke did not accept it. And that's the end of our story. I hope you like it and give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss newly uploaded videos.